Welcome to From Caving In to Crushing It, the podcast for those who find themselves immersed in adversity and choose to write their story instead of having others write it for them. I'm Drew Duraney, and I'm your host. Hey, Anke, how are you?
I'm very well, delighted to be here.
I'm excited to have you. We've known each other for a while now. I think we've hit almost a year now, and we've gotten a chance to talk about a lot of different things. And you've got an amazing story, and I know you're a wonderful storyteller, and I know you've gone through a lot. I'd like you to just tell us how you got to where you are, and emphasizing that it's not a linear road you traveled, and I'm really intrigued about. You're an amazing person, and I want to know how you got to be who you are.
Oh, yeah, that's a bit of a loaded question.
That's all right. You can
um,
you can start. Well, I was born and I was in diapers, and start
yeah, kind of.
wherever you'd like.
Yeah, I think there's one. I kind of don't want to really go, oh, that felt like, but there is one thing that I think I always find is worth mentioning that I actually grew up in East Germany,
Okay.
behind the wall,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's not something that has anything to do with my life today, but it
Right.
has shaped the way I see the world.
Okay. Great.
Because when you grow up in a tiny country with no way out,
Hmm.
well, like not even allowed to travel or to do anything beyond
Right.
those little, borders. At the same time, I always thought that felt like when you have like a parrot in a tiny cage,
Yeah.
where you have the bars of the cage are far enough apart so you can see what's on the outside.
Hmm.
Because here we
Yes.
had West Germany right there. We could listen to Radio Luxembourg, like, and we could watch West German TV.
Right.
So we knew what was outside, but the cage was so small that I always felt I couldn't spread my wings.
Yes.
So it was really frustrating really early on, right? So to the point that when in the 80s things loosened up a little bit, like you wouldn't be kind of shot and thrown in the dungeon immediately, so that I basically said, I need out.
Okay.
I don't want to live my life on that little autopilot machinery.
Right.
You go through the thing and go through the motions all on that predefined little way where it's kind of safe, but also you feel you're just cruising slowly towards death with nothing in between.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I never wanted that, right? So I basically made the moves I needed to make. That's a story for another day, to
Hmm.
get out of East Germany before the wall came down. And about 2.5 years later, I get a letter and it says, so you no longer welcome here. You're on train XYZ on the 10th of February, 1989. Before you can go, we need you to get approval from all these different places, and then you can take whatever suitcase you can carry, and then you're going to leave the country and you won't come back.
Wait. So explain that to me. How can so they how why would that letter come to you? What triggered that?
It triggered that I basically handed in a letter 2.5 or, yeah, almost 3 years earlier
Uh-huh.
saying, I want to leave the country. And the
Oh, okay.
response at the time was like, well, there's no legal basis for that. That's not a thing, right? But well,
So you couldn't just leave. You
internally,
you
oh,
guys
hell
had,
no.
in order to want to
No.
leave, you had to
Look,
submit for approval?
well, you had three options. One was to sort of try and physically cross the border,
Right.
which meant you might, if somebody sees you, you get shot,
You might get killed, yeah.
like
Right.
shot to kill. And or you could go and try and get out if you had like a close relative. If
Okay.
you had a sister who
Hmm.
happened to live in West Germany and had a round birthday, you could
Right.
apply to visit for a few days and then not come
And then
back,
not come
which
back.
means,
Okay.
so you're out, then you don't come back, but then that's the thing, you can't take anything, like
I
literally, like
see.
you know. But then also, I never had that relative out there that would allow me to travel, right? Sometimes you would, if you look up in history, there's a lot of athletes, artists who somehow, who went to international championships and never came back.
Never
Lots
came
of
back.
Cubans
Yep, I've done
ran
that.
off like that. Lots of Russians who went to international competitions and then just kind of like disappeared and never came back.
Yep.
So I never had that chance because I never went to an international competition because you're only like, look, you weren't even, if you had any relation, like relatives remotely, you never make it to the international team in whatever sports you do. Like, this was like, like that was pretty controlled.
Oh my
Who
gosh,
would
I didn't
ever get,
realize that.
or you do what I did was like, okay, you just sort of hand in some paper and say, well, look, I want to travel, I want to do this, and they go away. That's not a thing.
Okay.
Right. But internally, all of a sudden, like you were no longer welcome in there. Some people waited for 10 years.
Whoa.
Some people waited for 5. Some
Okay.
people didn't even remember that they applied, and all of a sudden, right? So it was just in the 80s, it almost picked up momentum that more and more people, and sort of, 2 to 3 or 4 years of waiting where you didn't know if you ever get out and when you'd get out. So you couldn't really plan anything. So you'd kind of burned your bridges in the country without having a ticket to get out. So that was that limbo.
Right.
That was the price to
That was a
pay to get
risk you
out.
took. Yeah. So when you
That
got
was
that
like,
letter, tell me how you felt when
yeah,
you got that letter. You were
excited.
excited. Yeah.
Excited.
Yeah.
Like literally excited, because all I could see was like, oh, this freedom on the other end
Oh,
of that page,
gosh, I can't imagine that feeling. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And it didn't even dawn on me like until much later that it also meant that, oh, anybody I've ever known in my life, except my grandparents, because, when they have like people who no longer needed to work or to kind of like, where they had to pay the pension, oh yeah, you
Right.
can go and not come back.
Interesting. Yeah.
So grandparents would have maybe allowed to come and visit, but anybody else, it was like that was a one-way ticket
Wow.
into who knows what,
Yes,
right? And
exactly.
all I could see was the opportunity,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And the reason I still find, like, the reason I find that's so relevant to how I lived my life was because at that time, at like 23 years old, I got to see that most of the things that people like shy away from, that's not a one-way ticket. For me, it's
Right.
like, what's the big deal? Like, I've
Yes,
experienced what a
absolutely.
real one-way ticket is,
Yes, you did.
right? And so I compare anything, moving to a different country, changing careers, starting a business, any of those things where people go, oh my God, I don't know. I'm like, no big deal, right? If I don't like it, I can go back or I can do something else. There's
Absolutely.
nothing at stake here,
Right.
you know?
I'll tell you that just that story, I could see how that shaped, at least, I mean, the Anka I know and the advice you've given me, and very helpfully, mind you, I can understand how that your perspective now could have been shaped by that entire experience. So thank you so much for sharing that. So now you're 23, you're out, and what did you do?
Well, I thought, okay, I never got to finish university because, after all, in East Germany, you're not really welcome to study at state expense when you've made clear that you don't want to stay there.
Hmm.
So I had like a half finished, half started university degree that I wanted to finish because, Germany is not one of those countries where it's not very entrepreneurial. It's
Hmm.
very much like you need your piece of paper to be anybody.
Yeah.
So I went to the university that accepted quite a bit of what I'd already done. And I finished uni.
Where was
I
this?
basically,
What
I
country was
went,
this?
well, that was in West Germany.
In West, I see. Oh, I see. You started out
Yeah,
in West Germany. Okay.
yes. Yeah. So I finished uni there, got my first job. And, 2 years into that, I got the opportunity to move to Australia.
Ah,
Well,
Yeah.
I met an Australian.
There we
So
go.
it was,
There's
it
your
was like,
opportunity. Right, right,
yes,
right.
that was, but that was also one of those things. People go, oh my God, moving to Australia so far away. For me, it was like, oh my God, Australia's on the bucket list.
Yep.
And what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that I don't like it there, and then I can come back. It's
Yes.
not a one-way ticket,
There you go. Right. Absolutely.
no big deal,
Yeah.
and that's why I went. And that's why a lot of, and I stumbled into the software development industry there,
Okay.
you know, because I found that a job as a translator, which was the career I'd studied,
Hmm.
that wasn't really the kind of work that was neither readily available and was really badly paid.
Yeah.
So I knew pretty quickly that I wasn't going to last in that industry.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
I stumbled into software and I was like I was really intimidated by it initially,
Okay.
thinking like, oh my God, I'm way too old to get into this. And I'm not that technical. I'm a language girl, right? And so there was all this, and do I want to work in a whole all male dominated
Right. I was going
industry,
to say
like
it's male
all that
dominated too.
stuff?
Yep. Hmm.
And fortunately, Australia is incredibly entrepreneurial. There was lots of encouragement, and people kind of like, just do the exam. And I'm like, let me just do the exam, see what happens. Let's
Yep.
just see what happens. And and one day it dawned on me. I was like, wait, programming language? It's got vocabulary and
There
it's
you go.
tiny.
Yeah. It's another
It's
type
got
of language.
structure. Exactly.
Yes.
It's got structure. So it's got like a
Exactly.
grammar, but it's nice and rigid.
Right.
So it's
Right.
basically it's like a real language, just simpler,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's when I go,
Absolutely.
ooh, I know how to learn
There we
languages,
go.
right?
Yep.
So, and that was like, didn't mean that I was any good at programming the day after, but I knew how to make this mine,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
the part that I was worried about, be like, oh, but I don't have a technical background, turned out to be the superpower.
Interesting. Why is
Because
that? Hmm.
I was the person clients would want to talk to because they wouldn't feel stupid with
I
me,
see. Yep. Yeah, they don't
right?
get
So I
overwhelmed.
was the one who could dig out of them
Hmm.
what it is they really needed,
Absolutely.
right? And you might find that kind of familiar. People come, oh, I want a page with a button that says X. And I'd go, wait, wait, wait. What are we actually doing here?
Hmm.
How does this process work? And it's kind of exactly what I do now,
Yeah.
just with different clients and different projects. But that digging in, what is it that you're really trying to achieve so that we can take that and translate that into the structure and the systems and the tools to make that happen in an easier way.
Right.
So clients love talking to me because I would talk to them like a real person, not make them feel stupid.
Absolutely.
Whereas like on the tech front, they were kind of happy they didn't have to deal with clients who couldn't express what they wanted, right?
Yeah.
So it's that piece in the middle,
Yeah.
that was incredible. That was like the golden ticket,
Absolutely.
and that was, that was surprising.
Yeah.
But
Well, I remember you taught me that it's not the initial thing is not I think almost never the thing, right? So because we
yeah,
as consumers, we don't know what we don't know, so we just
exactly.
think we know what's bugging us. You're able to put that aside and get down to the root cause of what needs to be addressed. And I think most of us will just take the customer at face value and start working on the thing that they say is the
Yes,
issue, and then they wonder why it's not working.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Spot on. That's exactly what happens a lot of the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in big software projects, like it's not, it's like it happens everywhere because nobody really does that translation bit.
It's true. So how long did you stay in the tech, just the software industry before you ventured out to other stuff?
10, 15 years?
It was okay. So it was that
Oh,
long?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I love the hell. I loved it.
You did. Okay. You say that up
Yeah,
landing.
totally
Okay.
loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then why'd you leave?
Well, there's a time for it's like I think I also have this thing. It's like I can sort of see where my ship's going.
Hmm.
And when I kind of don't like where this is headed 10
Yeah.
years down from now, I change tech now.
Yes.
Right. So, and I've done that several times. And with
Right.
the software industry, I saw like I was in my late 30s when I saw, hey, don't like where this is going.
Okay.
Like several things. There was one was that the entire software industry was shifting towards, oh, programming must outsource to India, right? So,
Yes.
and all of the projects the kind of projects that I love working on, now the proposition was like, okay, you get to manage the project and you get to kind of work with an Indian outsource company. So I basically was going to sit there um, struggling with milestones and deadlines, all the stuff I don't enjoy doing,
Right.
and
Right.
then watch other people mess up a project I would have loved to do, right?
Exactly.
So it was
Yes.
like,
Uh-huh.
does not sound like
No,
fun. On
absolutely.
top of it, it was like, well, if now a project ends, and I was contracting, I was
Hmm.
freelancing, so and I
Right.
was sort of fairly early on, right? Because it
Right.
was also booming that industry. Why would you tie yourself down with a permanent job?
Absolutely.
So there was also that moment where it was like, well, now if a project finishes, I pick up the phone and call a few friends, and I have a new project
Yes.
tomorrow.
Right.
10 years from now, I don't want to send out programmers' resumes at 50 and
Hmm.
have some 25-year-old kid
No.
wondering what this grandma wants here, when it's really
Yes.
difficult to find another project. And I don't
Right.
want to sit there nervous about about any restructuring kind of thing,
Yeah.
to kind of wonder whether I still have a job tomorrow, and then knowing that I'm going to struggle finding a new one. It's like I
Mhm.
want to be at the helm of my ship.
Absolutely. Very
I
understandable.
literally I threw my career in the bin because I wanted more job security.
Good for you. Good for you. You
You
noticed,
know,
you recognized it early. So
yep,
what
yep.
did you end up doing?
Well, why easy if you can have it exciting?
Oh, of
Uh,
course.
I ended up I'd learned some Spanish,
Right.
just for the fun of it, for
Right.
a bucket list trip to Peru, and I thought,
Right.
oh, so then I took trips to Spain all the time just to kind of practice my Spanish, and really fell in love with the place. And it's like, oh, and I remember myself walking, through the historic part of town of
Right.
Granada and
Right.
thinking, oh my God, I hate the idea of having to go back to London.
Uh-huh.
What if I could live in one of those little whitewashed houses? And
Ah.
there was this idea, and I remember going back to London, and I'm sort of sitting there. Well, I was actually cutting a roughly flowery summer dress on my dining room table
Okay.
with some flamenco music playing in the back, thinking, so now let's just play with that idea. Like, if I was really to move to Spain,
Okay.
because the thing is that was at the same time where I was thinking, I don't like where the software industry is going,
Right.
right? So what if I was to move to Spain? What would I do? Like,
Hmm.
oh, well, okay, so now let's just like take another step back. Like, what would I do if I didn't have to worry about money, language skills, paperwork, time? What if I didn't have to worry about anything? What would I do?
Right.
And I'm like, huh, I've got a very fancy, roughly polka dot dress on my cutting table. Oh, I'd love to have a little creative sewing studio where I would make, I was never interested in the fashion industry. What I
Right.
wanted to have like made to measure, and because the thing is, the process, it's exactly the same process as building custom software.
See, that this is where this is intriguing me because, if you think about our brains, you got the IT stuff on one side, right? The one side of your brain, and now the creative artistic piece on the other. You're showing an alignment between the two in the sense of the process is
Yes.
identical. And that's pretty powerful. So now it's Australia, London, Spain, no more software. Now it's flamenco dresses. I want to hear this one. All right.
Yeah. So that was basically, it was really funny because like a lot of time, oh my God, how can you do something so radically different? And I'm
Yeah.
like, look, in my mind, it's all the
Yes.
same
It was not radically different
because
either. Yeah.
not at all, right? And actually, in the process of that, I got to see that even building a business is exactly the same process.
Okay.
It's the very same creative process that we always go through to
Okay.
take any
Okay.
idea to reality. Like it's always the same process. And the
Yeah.
better you know that, the less likely you are to run after some silly proven
No,
successful
that's
that
great.
just
That's
kind of
great
screws
advice,
you
Anka.
over.
That's great advice because most entrepreneurs don't see that it's the
Hmm.
same. You can be in any industry, it's the same.
Yeah.
And I commend you for that, knowing that early on, because you're helping a lot of us not reinvent the wheel. So,
Yeah, and recognizing that it does require some experimentation. So you're
hmm,
not chasing security where there isn't any,
right, right. And you're
right?
embracing failure
So
because you learn from failure, right?
yeah, I say like in my world, failure, it's like it doesn't even exist,
Okay, good. Yeah.
because in my world, it's like anything you put together, and that's like when you build software,
Hmm.
it's the same when you design a dress. You have an idea and then you kind of put something together and you try it out and you go, ooh, that's not quite the way I thought. Like,
Hmm.
let's adjust. And the same when you build a business. You come out with an idea and then you get feedback from clients. You go, oh, that's not really what I thought it would be. Well, let's take that information, adjust, and plan the next experiment. So
Right.
you
So,
every
right.
piece,
Yep.
every result you get is feedback from an experiment. Like you don't do an experiment and you get disappointed if the mouse runs in one direction rather than the other. It's just like, oh, isn't that interesting? Not quite what I thought would happen,
So,
right?
Anka, would it be safe to say the word failure is not even in your vocabulary? Failure is
No.
feedback for you. That's the F word,
Yeah,
feedback.
that's it.
I
Yes,
love it. Yep,
totally,
absolutely.
totally.
Okay,
Yeah,
feedback.
totally. And it's because that's the thing. What's failure? I actually I did a reel on that, but like
Yeah,
it's failure just means when you feel you failed, it just means you've chosen an unfortunate spot to stop and draw a conclusion.
right. And you're drawing your own conclusion that it's failure. It's
Yeah.
you
And
saying
but
it's a
you can
failure.
just keep going because the
Yeah.
same thing probably will look quite different
Hmm.
after the next round of experiments. You might
Absolutely.
find, usually you find, well, actually, this thing, not quite going to plan, has now opened up something else, or it's taught me something that's led me to here. So usually,
Hmm.
looking back later, you recognize the gift in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
And then
that means just don't draw a conclusion, right? Just
absolutely.
use it
Hmm.
as as the basis for the next step, for the next experiment.
Fantastic. Okay, so they started doing the dresses. I've heard some of these great stories. Tell me your favorite story about the flamenco dress.
God, I got there's so many, but but I think like literally in the context of what we just touched on,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
It's the biggest failure in there
Hmm.
has been the biggest gift,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Because what happened, like my business plan was literally, let's just see what happens.
Yep. Yep.
That was it. I downloaded a template for a business plan, but then I looked at it. I'm like, that's just a spreadsheet that requires me to make a bunch of stupid assumptions that make no sense at all. Because like how can I
Yeah.
forecast
Yep.
revenue when
Absolutely.
I don't even know whether a Spanish flamenco dancer would even consider having a dress made from a hobby sewist from Germany. It's like, that's kind of like there is only one way to find out. There was no
Right.
way to research anything.
Right.
All the assumptions didn't make sense. I totally bootstrapped it, so I didn't need the business plan for any funding or anything,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it was just like, let's just see whether I can find some poor sucker who'll buy a skirt I make.
There you
Like
go.
that was the business plan, really.
Somehow I think you
Now,
found some. Let's
yes, so now the thing is, that's also like a two-edged sword, right?
right.
I still to this day think this idea of, haha, this is funny, let's just see what happens,
Hmm.
is what made it possible,
Right.
right? Because I had nothing on it. It was literally like, yeah, I just want it out of my system.
That's true. You
I
didn't
just want
set
to see what
deadlines on yourself.
happens.
Yeah, actually,
No,
you removed all the limits that we
yes,
usually put on ourselves.
yeah.
Yep.
And I had nothing on this being successful,
Right.
right? I always say I fear regret way more than failure. I didn't
Mm.
care whether this worked out or not.
Yep.
What I didn't want is get to 80 thinking, oh, I wonder what life in Spain would have been like.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what having my own business would have been like.
Absolutely.
That's what
Yeah.
I don't want.
No, you don't
You
want it.
know, I'd rather jump, give it a go, and then I'll decide, yeah, is this for me or isn't it?
Yep.
Right? So, okay, let's just see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's because I wasn't like cautious. I was just like, this is exciting. Let's just, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it also means that I wasn't strategic about anything.
Right. Right.
Right. So it was just like, let's just see whether we can sell a skirt here. And then you got the first one. And you go, oh my God. And then the objective was, let's just get the second one and the third one. And then before I knew it, I had built myself a very fast running, relentless
There
hamster
we
wheel.
go.
Right.
Oh, the hamster wheel.
So,
Okay. All right.
and that's where where the surprise came, right? Because
Yeah.
if you had asked me at the beginning of this journey where I thought the challenges would be,
Yeah.
I would have said, oh, I wonder whether I'm going to find a good fabric supplier,
Yeah.
or whether I'm going to find the right machines, or, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what turned out to be the biggest stumbling block was being Mrs. Nice Girl.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
with yes
Right.
as the default
Yes.
answer.
Yep. Defaulted
And
with
and
yes. Yeah.
so, and I mean, again, there was a lot of like, I don't kind of beat myself up for it. It's like, oh boy, the innocence in it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
I had a sewing business. It was made to measure. It wasn't like a shop. It was like a studio where
Right.
people would come and say, hey, I want a dress and I want it like this. So it was a hybrid
Mm-hmm.
between an artist studio and a shop kind of thing.
Okay.
So, but
Okay.
in my mind, it was still like, it didn't occur to me that I did not have to take on every project that was brought into my place.
You were allowed to say
I
no. You were allowed
Yes,
to
I
say
did
no.
that. It wasn't even that I thought, oh, I don't want to. Like, it didn't even enter my
I
world.
see. Okay.
I thought when people came and wanted an outfit, it was
You
my job to give it to them.
got it. Got it. Yep.
Right?
It's the
And that's
mindset there.
fine when you have 2 orders. That's
Yes.
not funny when you have 20 at the same
No.
time.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And everybody kind of, and then also I sometimes think that like the universe sent me to Spain to learn the lesson, because people here culturally aren't very considerate.
Really?
Like, they don't care.
Okay.
They want their thing and they want it
They
now,
want it
and
now.
they
Okay.
don't care. And you have to, like, a wishy-washy wimpy no, they walk all over it.
All
And
right.
they did.
So you, because of that, you conformed to what their expectations
Yeah.
were, and you were a yes
Because
person because.
absolutely, my mom used to say to me when I was 10, like, you're too nice. People take
Mm,
advantage of you. I didn't even feel it, right?
okay. Yeah.
But in any other country, in the UK, in Australia, culturally, they're considerate. They're not going to ask you anything unreasonable.
Okay.
Oh, Spanish clients will.
Spain
Hell
does.
yeah,
Okay. All
right?
right.
So they will go and you go, say, oh, I'm really sick. Like, I've got like high fever. I'm feeling horrible. They go, oh, I'm really sorry. Well, I need my dress tomorrow, right? It's like, I will pay lip service to whatever's going on for you,
Mhm.
but I will want my thing and I
Yeah.
don't care how
Yeah.
you do it, right?
Yeah.
So even if I say, oh, I can't do it, yeah, but I need it. Like, they even, a
Jeez.
gentle no, they will walk straight
Walk
over it,
straight over you. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So I really struggled with that,
Okay.
because there I was, right? And we talked about that. There I
We
was
did.
thinking, how can I be of service and nice and gentle and generous without being
Without
walked
being
all
walked all
over,
over. Yes.
right?
Yes.
How can I set my boundaries
Hmm.
without turning into, you know,
You can say it.
a tough bitch and asshole, right?
There we
So,
go.
and I thought, I don't
Yeah.
want to be tough. I
Yeah.
don't want to be like yelling back, and I don't want to be like that, but I couldn't see how I could have both. It didn't
Right.
even occur to me.
Yeah. It happens
And
to a lot
saying
of us.
no didn't see, saying no didn't, when I came to a point that I wish I could,
Yeah.
I didn't think it was possible because, Granada's a small place. The
Hmm.
flamenco world's a small world. Everybody knows each other.
Right.
If I say no, no to
No.
one, she's going to get upset and then she won't come back and
Right.
she's going to talk about me and then her friends won't come back. And next thing I know, I'm going to be homeless in the street.
So all these assumptions, you're forecasting the future
Mm,
that probably never would happen.
well, that's the thing. And I didn't get to see that until I was so burned out
Yeah.
that I was like, look, if this is what living the dream is, you can go have
The
it and stuff it
nightmare.
wherever
I'm
you
not
want it.
living this.
You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
it
Right.
was
Yeah.
literally, it took me, and what it took, I don't know whether I've told you the story. Like what it took, it was like, it was always, spring was crazy season. Like started in the middle of February and
Yeah.
it went on with dance schools, 10
Okay.
dresses here, 15 dresses
Wow.
there, 20 dresses there,
Yeah.
by that date. And the
Right.
last performance was always the biggest school late last weekend in June,
Okay. Yeah.
And I remember that year, 2012 it was,
Mhm.
I ended up working through the last 4 days and 3 nights without sleeping,
Wow.
like 20 minutes on the tiled floor next to the dog.
Oh
So I
my
wouldn't be
gosh.
too comfortable because I knew I wouldn't have woken up
Waking up.
until
Yeah.
after the performance.
Right. Right. Right.
So I was there like looking all anorexic, like cold sores on both his
No
hair falling
sleep.
out,
Red
you
eyes.
know,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, like a mess, emotionally, physically, like
Mhm.
this was it. And so I still have that photo when all the dresses are on stage, like like through a miracle I made it. And that still wasn't enough. If you look at that photo, I'm
Mhm.
smiling with that sense of satisfaction,
Of course,
right?
I
Of
got
I've
it done.
pulled it
I may
off,
have
right?
killed myself, but I got it done.
I know. And 2 days later,
Yeah.
I hear that two of the dancers had gone on holiday without paying me.
Oh boy.
Like that was when I was done with it. It
Yeah.
was like I was like, one more dancer come near me and I'm gonna throttle them. Right? It
Oh,
was like,
really?
like I was really like, I hate all my clients. And that what I think it was again, it was like probably the worst time I've ever had in my
Mhm.
life, like physically, emotionally. I was so done with it all. But in hindsight, you know, well, depends on when you stop to draw a conclusion. Because I look back now and say, like, this was the biggest gift because
Yeah.
I needed that to no longer
Right.
care about, oh, what if I say
You
no, they
know,
will
you're
stay
right.
away.
You're
Like,
right.
I
Because
no
if they
longer
paid you,
cared.
if you had gotten paid by everybody before they went on holiday, you
Yeah,
would have said, I got the job done. I
I,
got my
I,
money. Let's keep doing it. You needed like
exactly.
the hit upside the head by not, two people not paying
Absolutely.
you and
Yeah,
not respecting the work you did and the
yeah,
time you put in.
yeah,
Yep. It usually
yeah.
happens. We got to
So,
be good
in
about that.
exactly, right.
Mhm.
So I was kind of masochistic enough to need it like that. I
Yeah.
didn't get
Yeah.
it before that, right?
Right. Right.
So then what did I do? I started like, okay, I'm done with you lot. I'm gonna have a mental blacklist now. You
Mhm.
pull one of these, don't show up without notifying me, saying, oh, it's easy, but that's no big deal. Like, okay, like
Yep.
any one of those that
Yeah.
peeved me
Right.
off,
Right.
I thought, I was just like, bring it on. I'm
You're
just
you're
waiting for
waiting
you.
for that next one,
Yes,
right?
I'm just waiting for you to pull one off. And then you're going to be on my mental blacklist, which means I'm going to finish the dress I've got. Next time you want something, I'm going
Mhm.
to be busy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
This will be the last thing I ever make for you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Now, the interesting thing is the very next time somebody came and go, oh, I don't have time to come for a fitting because, her time's more valuable than mine. I need you to come to the theater on Sunday night, but don't bring the dog. I go, sorry, sweetheart, can't do that for the first time in my life, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, you know what? I'll come pick it up on Monday. It actually works better anyway.
There you go.
And I'm like, wait, what? Wait, what? It
Wow.
was like, that was such a moment where I was like, turns out she wasn't upset.
Nope.
She didn't talk to anybody else.
No.
She came back, and
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, like such a humbling moment when
Of
you
course.
realize
Yes.
that whole pressure, it never
Mhm.
came from them.
No. Yep. You put the pressure on yourself.
It was my assumption
Mhm.
that saying no meant unhappy customer.
Yep.
and saying yes means happy customer.
Yeah. No, it's
And
very
that
well
was the
said.
moment where I got to see that that connection wasn't there.
Nope. Nope.
That there was no connection. Sometimes you say yes and they'll be happy. Sometimes you quite like way more often than I ever imagined. I say no and people were grateful,
Yeah, absolutely. Just you were
you
honest with
know.
them. Absolutely.
And and they said,
Yeah.
oh, it's the, you got to see it's actually the kindest thing you can say to someone,
And
right?
yeah,
Because she
yep.
says, oh, at least, well, thank you, because at least now I have time to find another option,
Yeah, absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yep.
And that was like, so the biggest turnaround, because then it's like, okay, so if saying yes does not bring me happy clients, if saying no does not turn off clients, I might as well say yes when I want to say yes and say no when I want to say no,
That's the lesson.
right?
That's absolutely.
Yeah, so which turned my experience of that whole business around,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and basically nothing else happened other than
Okay.
I had a much better time, right? And
Absolutely.
it was that lesson that led
Yeah.
me to do coach training and to to go on, because I thought I can't be the only person who's gone out, followed the dream, tried to make something happen and realized that your biggest challenge doesn't come from where you think it will,
Yeah, it's true.
right? It's
It's
your
true.
inner stuff that catches up with you,
Absolutely.
and the stuff that you can't eat, that you don't even see coming,
Yep.
you know.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's what had me change tack again. And it was the same situation. I thought, oh, I don't want to be 60 and hammer out 50 dresses each summer,
No.
right? So yeah.
So what are you doing now?
Well, so now I'm kind of back into the translation business,
There we
right? In a
go.
sense.
Yep.
So it's kind of coming all together in the sense, like there's a book by an Australian lady called Bronnie Ware, and the book's called The Top Five Regrets of the Dying.
Mm-hmm.
And number one is not having gone for their dreams,
Okay.
right? And I'm kind of on a mission to make sure that that's not you, right?
Yes.
So it's when somebody wants to create something,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing in my tech experience, like, okay, if you want to create something online, I help people to take their idea and make it happen. Like, that process in
Yes.
between fleshing out the idea. Sometimes it's narrowing it down. Sometimes it's changing the scope of it. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's defining it differently, and then going through that creative process to say, no, 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 you don't chase any silly proven success formula. This is going to be a creative process that requires to have a sequence of experiments. We need
Right.
an audience, we need an offer, and we need the systems to support all that. So, but basically, I'm guiding people through that path, like the jungle in their
Oh,
mind
I
between
know.
the
I know.
idea and
I
the
know. Well,
final thing.
yeah, full
So yeah.
disclosure, you are helping me in that whole journey, and it's been
Mm.
exciting. So I thank you for that.
Yeah.
You and I could talk for like hours.
Yes.
I got two final questions. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're sitting down with young 7 to 10-year-old Anka, and you would like to give her some advice about life. What are you going to tell her?
Go for it.
Love it. Just go for it. All right. So now you put a different hat on, and now
Mm-hmm.
it's your young Anka, the businesswoman, ready to go be that entrepreneur, and you want to give her some advice on business. What are you going to tell her?
Can I tell a few things?
Tell her, tell her whatever you'd like. What are you going to tell her?
Well, the first thing I want to tell her is, you might not believe me, but no is a complete sentence.
Good. Yep. Absolutely.
And the other thing is, you can be self-reliant. It's a good thing to be self-reliant, but it's not the best thing.
Okay.
Get some help,
Hmm.
get some input. Don't stew in your own juices for too long.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for that, Anka. So I know that the audience is starting to get a flavor of the essence of Anka, and they're going to want more. So can you please let us know how to get in touch with you and anything else you'd like us to know?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. You can put the link in the thing. It's Anke Herrmann. There's not that many. You can get a free copy of my book, Taming the Tech Monster. It's not a technical book, it's a storybook that will help you, take the stress out of the whole tech topic. So you can go to tamingthetechmonster.com and you get your free copy there. And then you're on my email list as well, so you're going to hear a lot more from me.
Wonderful. Well, Anke, thank you so much for not only for coming into my life, for becoming one of my good friends, and we're building something great together, and I admire you for what you're doing, and keep doing the good work. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second, because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.